back. You're watching Overdrive. Now, over the years, we've got a lot of viewers writing into us, asking us for suggestions on driving holidays abroad. So, what did we decide to do? Actually, what did Bert decide to do? Give you a practical demonstration. Here's Bert driving through Belgium, having a ball of a time and making us all green with envy.
I do have an envious job, I must admit. As an automotive journalist, I get to travel the world. More often than not, I find myself in Europe rather than in India. But today I'm not going to tell you a story about some particular car or a particular motorcycle or anything on four wheels or two. Today I'm going to tell you just how exactly you can share the same experiences that I partake of every other month. You need to get onto our driving holiday, and I'm going to tell you how. Our first step to start our driving holiday was to choose the right vehicle to tour comfortably in. And hence, we first stopped at Europe's most widely used car rental agency, Hertz. A luxurious Merc E-Class along with satellite navigation, and we were all set to hit the road. On this road trip, we start off from Brussels, which is known as the melting pot of Europe. From there on, we'll drive down to the historic city of Bruges, after which we move on to Antwerp, which is very popular back home in India because it is the diamond district of the world. From Antwerp, we're going to head down to Ghent, where we plan to have some fun, try out the beer, chocolates, and basically enjoy ourselves before winding down to Brussels. The advantage of driving in Europe is that almost every place is just a few hours drive away. Take for instance the Flanders region in Belgium. Every site worth seeing is just about 2 hours away from each other. My suggestion, still don't rush through everything, despite it being so close. Take your time because most of these cities, well, they've got a lot of history to showcase. So use those 2 hours to drive to a new destination, stay in there for a couple of days and then move on to the next. It'll make your tour, it'll make your driving holiday much more pleasurable. The moment you enter the medieval town of Bruges, you feel like you're transported into another era. The architecture dates back centuries, and Bruges is often referred to as the Venice of the North. Not hard to figure out why. It might just seem that Hollywood immortalized Bruges, but the reality is that this town, which is just a 2 hours drive away from Brussels, is centuries older than that. The high points of this town are the network of canals that run through it. And then of course there's the town itself, each building within which has been built brick by brick. If you wanted to travel back in time, in Bruges is where it's going to happen. Bruges has become a popular tourist destination thanks to Martin McDonagh's Oscar-winning thriller In Bruges. The town is full of narrow lanes, all of which are one-ways that make you rethink your decision about driving through. Thankfully though, finding some parking spots near some historic sites doesn't turn out to be a gigantic task. The cobblestone streets, the unique architecture, the network of canals, the traditional handicrafts, and of course the historic town squares. Now all of these contribute, they come together to make Bruges, or rather earn it, the tag of World Heritage Site. The drive from Bruges to Antwerp is just as scenic as this entire region. There is a canal running parallel to the road, and the entire landscape is dotted with windmills. There are a couple of things you need to keep in mind while driving in Europe, and the first of this is always observe the speed limit. It's never smart to get onto the wrong side of the law. The fines in Europe, well, trust me, they're exorbitant. The second is, again, since you're driving in Europe, you're always driving on the right side of the road, which in India is the wrong side of the road, but in Europe, well, you have to stick to the right. Just keep that in mind, keep these two clauses in mind, and well, you'll enjoy your holidays, you'll have a safe drive anywhere you go in Europe. Belgium in itself is a small country, and the Flanders region, well, that's an even smaller part of Belgium. It's located to the northwest of Belgium. Driving through Flanders, it's a very pretty drive. The roads are fantastic, they're smooth throughout, they're well connected. And then
pass through these very scenic locales. You get to see acres and acres of cornfields everywhere, windmills in the distance, canals all throughout. It just makes this a very charming, a very pretty drive.
Antwerp is known as the city of diamonds, and many Indians have gained prominence as diamond traders here. But since purchasing diamonds was not on my priorities, I decided to head to Chocolatier, a delicious chocolate shop. Trying to tone down the sugar rush, I took the wheel and headed towards Ghent. And once we reached there, it was time to take a break from driving. So we hopped onto a boat to take a journey through the canals. Definitely the best way to get acquainted with the history the city has to offer.
Belgium's most famous produce has to be its beer. There are hundreds of blends of beer brewed all over the country. Now, Belgian beer is probably more popular than German beer or any other European beer for that matter, even though, like the Germans, they don't have a festival to celebrate beer. Still, any trip to Belgium has to be complemented by a trip to a brewery, which is why we've come to Lindemans, which is a very popular beer maker in Belgium, to see just what this whole experience is all about. Now, I'm not going to be drinking any, well, because I'm driving, but I most definitely am going to inhale and see what happens in there.
Inside the brewery, my grand vision of huge vats of beer churning and frothing into which I could dip a mug and get a taste was shattered. Instead, I saw an automated process of ingredients being mixed and bottles being sealed. Pity, once out of the intoxicated air of the brewery, it was time to head back to where my journey began.
After around 1,000 kilometers driving in the Flanders region of Belgium, well, we finally come back to square one here in Brussels. It's been the most relaxed place I've ever driven at in my entire career. But after all that driving, I think I finally earned a reward. A glass of beer? No. A mug of beer? No. A jar? No. A keg?